Okay, so I'm going to go old school, and I don't get a fancy lapel mic. I'm going to have to do a handhold and a clicker, so you're all going to bear with me. Quick survey. How many here are developers? Raise your hand. Okay, all my techies, I see you. How many here are in like business development? Okay, BD, looking for strategy and growth. How many are on the product side or R&D, making stuff? Okay, and marketing folks or finance? Okay, so we have a mixed bag. And I think a couple hands. Laura, you forgot HR and some other stuff. Students, yes? Okay. I'm going to talk to you about leveraging mobile AR, VR, and the learnings from gaming. This clicker works. Let's see. It's on. First, my mic doesn't work. All right. How many are familiar with Ready Player One? Okay, for you this will not be a surprise, but let's see how good the tech equipment is here. To move on to, okay, I don't know how good their streaming is on the threshold. Oh, no. Press play on my screen. Oh, I have to. Sorry, 1 second. Well, if it doesn't work, it's okay. I'll have to describe. Oh, wow. It just jumped into YouTube. So for all you know, this is Murphy's Law. Anything that will go wrong will happen. You guys can pull it up on YouTube. I won't go through the whole thing because I had already edited it down. And I don't think their slide is customized for it. So let's skip it. All right. Unfortunately, that was a video of Ready Player One. If you haven't seen it, go look at it. I'm a big proponent, big fan of looking at Hollywood video. If you remember Back to the Future, a lot of times what you see. It's okay, skip it. But in Hollywood, what tends to happen is the creators of Hollywood, they reach out into visioning the future. And then the techies come along, they see that cool stuff in Hollywood, and they said, yes, our cars need to fly. Yes, let's run everything on solar, i.e. Elon. Yes, let's have all of this cool stuff we see in Hollywood. And so that's what Ready Player One shows us, is the future of AR and VR from the lens of entertainment and Hollywood. But how close or how far is this reality? And that's what I'm kind of walking through. Okay, so a little bit about me. You heard my background from Jeremy. I'm going to quickly go through some theming here. First, highly educated. I did most of my background in tech, electrical engineering, computer science, did a master's in artificial intelligence, and then also an MBA at Berkeley. Go Bears! All right. Also, you see everyone, Zot, Georgia Tech. So you represent. From there, I've always had a natural love for entertainment and the mashup between technology. So you see, at night I'm a family of supers, and I also try to influence women and children and my kids around the new developments of technology. And from that, it led me into the field of mobile development and gaming. So you heard Jeremy talk about the products that I manage. Enough about me, let's talk about evolution. So, how many here have a mobile phone? I'm assuming 100%. If you don't have a mobile phone, it's the newest discovery, you need to get one. But if you remember back, not to, a couple centuries ago, mobile phones weren't a thing, telephones weren't a thing. This was the original form of communication. And what happens with technology is there's social impacts from technology. So I want you to keep that theme for all of you in entrepreneurship, that as technology evolves, there is direct impact into our society. And we saw that with mobile development. I feel like, I'm at Hogsworth and I'm like, I like it now. Here, so let's talk about what we're being faced with today. Now we keep that theme of evolution. Well, what are we facing today? What are our challenges for those of us that want to get into the market of AR, VR, or those of us that are in it? First thing, it's a fractured ecosystem. So those of you who have already developed, you've picked one headset, you've picked one engine, one platform to develop on. But in terms of this fractured ecosystem, what tends to happen that we're seeing today is that there's a lag on technology adoption because we don't know yet who's going to win the race, right? We're kind of in that era between Blu-ray and what type of DVD system we're going to have coming off the hills of VHS. And then from there, you have government policy gaps. So, what happens in AR and VR? Like, what are the types of systemic problems we'll see? Like, are there going to be issues around crime? Are there going to be issues around harassment? And so all those things need to be figured out as we go into scale. There's also bias in applications. And so I highly encourage you, if you're developing products in this space, to look at the bias that's happening in R&D. Making sure, I remember early development on voice recognition. I was talking to the voice recognition apps and I would tell them something, and when I would say it, they would I'd ask, where is the theater? And they would say, do you need a meter? And it's like, no, that's not what I'm telling you. And then my husband would get on and he would ask, where is the theater? And it's like, where is the theater? I comprehend that. So bias in applications are a real thing. And lastly, there's not a lot of content for women, family, and children. So, snapshot this is the challenges of today. If you can help us solve through these challenges, then you will be far ahead in terms of your company and meeting the needs of AR and VR. So from there, what I'm going to talk a little bit about is how this has evolved on the gaming side. Okay, and so, I come from the days of right on the heels of Pong and coming in the early NES. For those of you who don't know what NES is, it's the first Nintendo system, and then evolving from there. And so what we found in gaming is that, and I'm speaking generally for the industry, I'm sure there will be some nuances individually, but what we found is that games are an early adopter of most technology. And in the AR, VR realm, it is very difficult for finding a happy equilibrium between creating a great player experience and creating a balance of VR to where you're not overwhelmed with complexity. Okay, sorry. So this is a tear sheet for you. I saw there was a great number of techies in the room. I don't have time to go into all the ins and outs of how to develop an AR VR, but this is your toolkit. So if you are interested in doing it, you will build some kind of application that will sit on one of these engines. These are my recommendations for the top 6 engines that will also start to pull libraries from these 6 sensors. And as AR, VR evolves, there will be more sensors that unlock. And then you will probably have to pick which platform. You want to go head mounting or you want to go a handheld device like more traditionally seen in AR. So this is your toolkit. Use it as a tear sheet. I won't be able to go into it, and normally my talks that are an hour, I do go into this ecosystem a little bit more. So in terms of choosing AR or VR, there's a lot of decisions you'll have to decide through. And again, as we talk about evolution and the impact on society, the first thing is immersion type. Do you want to do AR where you're using a handheld device or you have some kind of 360-degree projection? This picture is from Disney Research Lab where imagine you go to a theme park and every bench you sit on you get to interact with your favorite character. Mine is Minnie Mouse. I could have a whole conversation with Minnie Mouse and how she got married to Mickey Mouse and what she likes to do for fun, what cookies she likes. The other things that you'll have to consider are things like field of view. Field of view is the span in which you can interact with the environment. That will be much larger on console and PC than it is on mobile. So again, device interaction. And then you'll also see things like the eye fatigue, the type of fatigue you'll get with the different environments. Most people don't realize that they always think, oh yeah, VR, AR, it's all about feeling sick, motion sickness. There's other elements to that, including eye fatigue, too much complexity, too many things that are causing synapses to fire off in our brain. Too much cognitive load will actually cause individuals, users, or players not to want to play those applications anymore. So overstimulating your users can be a really big problem with this piece of technology. Good thing I memorized my deck. Lastly, head tracking. So early stages of this industry, we had to do a lot of head nodding, we had to do a lot of shaking of a device. We are getting to a place where those sensors I talked about in that toolkit, that framework, and ecosystem are getting much better at tracking your eyes, your head. Now they're coming out with controllers like they have on the Oculus and the Vive, where you can then send data back to the application. Okay, so a little bit about game design VR. Let me give you an example. Hopefully this video works. So what you're seeing here is Need for Speed. And not that. You will see Need for Speed. No, sorry. Click it for me. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. I've never had this much tech. Go ahead and go back. I'll have to talk through it. If this one is not on the internet, this one should be embedded in the deck, but it looks like it doesn't work. So I'll talk through it. What you would have saw is, go back to 2 slides for me, Yeli. Go back 2 slides. Okay, so that's unfortunate. It's a really good part of my deck. Here, I'll leave it on the black. Let's see if it comes up. But what you would see here is Need for Speed. It's a driving game. How many people have played it? Oh, wow, quite a few of you. Okay, so it's a driving game. You're racing. The objective of the game is coming first. In developing a game, you want to simulate. Don't touch. In developing a game, you want to simulate reality. And so that part of development, it was really interesting because when you look at driving, if you drove here today, what are the 2 most common things that you're going to look at? You're going to look through your windshield, and then you're going to look at your speed because what? You don't want a ticket from the police officer, right? And so thinking about those ritualized behaviors, from a consumer, we have to incorporate that psychological behavior in the VR experience. And so knowing that those are the 2 common things that a driver would do, how do you design for that on VR? So in the game, you would see the panel of a typical race car. And again, the largest thing you would see in terms of real estate on the screen is your windshield. And we leverage the windshield to have subtle design elements to tell you things like what place you're in. And so you would see that you were like last in place, and I would yell at you at the crowd and tell you to hurry up, you're taking too long in the race, and then you would speed up, you would see the mechanics of the control. And from there, what I would describe to you are seeing how we took a very complex system of driving and we designed it in VR to allow for low cognitive load. And low cognitive load is where you can understand your speed, you can understand what place you're in, you can understand the course and the S-curves that you're going through, you can understand where your competitors are on the in the race, and you can understand how much time you have left to finish this race. That's a lot of data points and information that you're trying to communicate to a user who thinks they're driving 180 miles per hour and they can actually feel it. Like if you were actually submerged in this environment, you wouldn't be sitting here probably tired from being in the conference all day. You would half of you would be screaming. And so that's a hard problem that we're constantly solving. So as we go to the next slide, the one you were seeing with the coin, scale is a huge issue. As you start to think about what you want to develop, scale factor can make individuals in your game or in your application feel very, very large or very, very small. It could also add to elements of fatigue, eye fatigue, and elements of motion sickness. So I'm speaking to you from the perspective of design, because again, the social impact especially if you want to go into education or the medical field, and you're really trying to impact like the behavioral or psychology realm. Things like scale matter a lot, and making sure that those fit. In terms of looking at it from, one of the videos worked, hallelujah. Looking at it from a platform design perspective, what you see here is this woman, she's seeing VR for the first time, and you can see, although she has a controller in her hand, what do you notice? She's leveraging, she's still trying to grab for it, right? And the reason why I'm calling this out, and most of you might have seen this, is that the social impact of VR and AR is that it feels real. And so remember how I talked about the phone? And what would your life be without a cell phone? How is it today? In a world where VR becomes our reality, and the things that you see, you can actually feel, and the way you feel has behavioral impact on you. These are key things that we need to take into account as we start to develop. And so keep in mind, AR and VR invokes a different fantasy. It's very important to think about how you want to design your application. Also know that audience are initially enamored by the application, like they try it once and they're like, that was cool. And then after that, they don't really care to go into it again. If you want to make money, and again, I'm responsible for making sure we drive revenue. If you want to monetize your application, you need to be able to develop it to where it goes past that novelty. You want to make sure that the first time they see it, they're wowed, but there's things that are ritualized in the application that makes them want to come back. Most people might be familiar with the term core loop. Making your core loop on VR and AR will be very different from a web-based application or a mobile-based application. And then there's things around, I just talked about ritualization. And then last, not all interactions are created equal. So making sure that if you're going to use gestures, that they are very minimal, because gestures have a great impact, whether it's gestures of your head, using the controllers, deciding if you want to use the spatial area in front of you. You only have 40 by 40 typically in space, so if you want to go move to the left or the right. So in final, this is your tearaway sheet. I just gave you a lot of information, drinking from a fire hose. I gave you the evolution, the social impact of technology, how we evolve, what happens with design elements, how it can impact your overall application, how to monetize it, right? So, one, solve these challenges, okay? And if you're confused in terms of like, hey, Laura, I really want to start in this area, I don't know where to start, mobile is a great opportunity to jump into it, so I'd say start with mobile. Secondly, consider scale interaction, field of view, eye fatigue when you're considering between AR and VR. Again, there's not enough time today to really go into each tech type, but there are very large differences between each platform and these 4 things, design elements. Third, you couldn't see this because I had the Need for Speed video that didn't show you, but the key takeaway was around navigation and interaction. And what I'll say here is, I remember development when I ran my first company around the the PC days in the early 2000s, and developing advertisement for the skyscraper ads on PC. And it was such a big thing around design for websites because, how many navigations are you going to have? 1 nav, 2 nav, side nav, bottom navigation. And so as we evolved on PC and in internet browsers, there was a lot of learnings around what made good navigations and websites. That's really the parallel of where we are in AR and VR, is like, what does navigation look like in that context? Beware of the novelty. And then last, all reality interactions are not created equal. If you use this as a tear sheet, every time you look at a product feature, every time you think about a new product, this will help you in the frame what you're trying to solve for. So with that, there's my Twitter handle. Take a picture of me, send it to that handle. I might send you a game. Other than that, I think I have time for no questions? 1 question? Okay. And then let me see if I can go, while we're doing questions, I'm going to see if I can go to this video, because I really would like you to see it. Good. Okay, questions? Yes.
Do you have any thoughts around VR, AR training?
Training.
Like if you were to change your tear sheet into creating a VR platform that trains someone to do things, is there anything you would add to that tear sheet for us to remember?
The ecosystem is important. I think that, again, I didn't get into the details of how to develop. You see how it's broken up in 4 areas? You know, if I was to develop training or hiring of a new workforce, I would break the teams up into these 4 pillars and then specialize, you know, figure out what sensor I want to optimize around, because what typically happens around the sensors is going to be your key of data point. So, right, like when you're going to develop an application and you're going to decide, do I want information to come from their eyes? Do I want information to come from their body motion? Do I want it to come from where they're moving around? So I would optimize around sensors first. And the reason why I picked that is because then you can decide which engine has the best libraries around those sensors. And that will help you with a breadth of physics things you can do leveraging these sensors and kind of help you with those capabilities. Great question. Any others? Yes.
Are there any VR projects or games you've seen that do a good job of building emotional intelligence or empathy? And are there any applications that you're excited about?
Great. So the question's about applications building emotional empathy. What I would say, the stuff that I've seen, and again, I wouldn't say my data points for all, but the stuff that I've seen are still on the layer of creating a conversation, right? So they're interacting with you, they're creating a conversation, but have they gotten to a point where they understand how you're feeling at that moment? I would say there's a lot to learn in that space. And really, it's where it's going to be the cross bridge between AI and VR and AR. And right now, most of the data points that we're absorbing from the platform are really around the sensors, the sensory of like, where are you at? Did you nod? Did you make some kind of interaction, NPC interaction that the computer can understand to take you to the next place or point in that application? Once you start to merge AI into VR, and again, this is extracting out the headsets, what kind of device you're going to use, but that Ready Player One, if you haven't seen that movie, where essentially like he's in this bodysuit and like the VR character like rubs his shoulder and he's like, oh, I feel that, right? Like that is the world that I think we could easily go into, and the tech is there. I mean, there's some libraries, there's some functions we need to write, but for the most part, the tech is there. They have applications of this, I think, in the military arena. Now, whether it goes into mass adoption, it's yet to be seen. I don't know if you guys want to pay $2,000 for an empathy emotional suit that you can feel when somebody touches you yet. Great question. Any other? Hopefully this was helpful. Oh, yes. Good versus bad. Well, one, I would talk about Need for Speed. Good interactions. I would highly encourage you, if you haven't tried Star Wars Battlefront 2, there's the flight simulator. That took a lot of effort to me, and I feel like I'm a little biased towards EA. But a lot of work and money goes into those applications. Especially with a flight simulator, most people who even get into an aircraft would probably vomit. The moment they took off, that G-force would just instantly make them pass out. So being in a flight simulator that tries to reduce that type of feeling and still makes you feel comfortable to play through it, I think is a very difficult problem to solve for. So I would say try that out. It's on PlayStation platform. There's a lot of others. I am a casual player, I will have to admit, although sometimes I have to develop mid-core and core, I'm a casual player. So I'm still looking for the opportunity where I get to play Candy Crush in 3D and move the little ball, the fruits and jellies around. So we'll see. Any others? All right. Well,
I have one.
Alright, so you have PlayStation Network, right? Xbox Live, right? And Steam, right? Those are the three leaders in every other areas, right? But how do you decide as a developer where to develop? Because there's so many networks. Does that make sense?
yes, the question is like, there's so many options. That goes back to the challenges of AR and VR, right? You've got a fractured ecosystem. This is where I would suggest you start. So first start with what do you want to solve for? Do you want to solve for health? Do you want to solve for education? Do you want to make a game? Do you want to create tech to help with people's day-to-day tasks? I would then look at the types of sensors that you want, because that will develop how much information you can get to build. In terms of PlayStation, I mean, they have I think they released something where they had over 1 million units out in the ecosystem. What I'd say around platform, PC, console versus mobile, because I do have a slide on that, but it's not in this deck, is that the adoption rate is faster on the PC and console business, and PlayStation owns that market in terms of units sold. So if you want the largest
That's
base
exactly
of
what I
consumers.
was getting at, because the thing is there's a bias to AR and VR right now that there's no single platform for
Both.
you know.
Yeah. My hypothesis is that one day, one of you in the crowd or somebody in this ecosystem is going to start developing what I call the mixed reality. And that the thing that's stalling us from mixed reality, and that's somewhat to like Ready Player One without the headset, but it's where you don't have to wear this huge helmet on your head, right? Like I feel like most of us try to be somewhat care about our physical appearance. And my prediction is that people don't necessarily like being submerged or emerged under a headset, right? Because you have to be stationary to a location. And so there's a lot of ritualized behaviors around being stationary to a location that's different from AR, where you can see your current environment, you can see if your kids run off, you can see if a dog bites you, you can see that you can still interact with the real world. So I'd say if you want to develop on PlayStation, the key thing is the immersion type is you're fully submerged. So you're going to have to think about the challenges of being fully submerged, where if you're on AR, you have more of a mixed reality, but your device, the type of device, handheld device options you have are a little bit more limited, and the adoption rate is a little bit more limited. Any other questions?
I had one.
Sorry, where's that?
Over here. So, right here.
Oh, awesome.
So do you see a time when this is pretty much simplified, where instead of the headset, it's just a chip is embedded, that is a neurogenics interface that covers most of the layers, even it would cover compassion and empathy, to really have a hands-on learning experience?
Great question. I broke my crystal ball yesterday, so I can't tell you the exact date, but what I would say is that this is where, if you look at tech adoption, there's certain industries that are able to accelerate in those technologies. So like games, tech, we're one of them. And then there's the ones that are always on the latter half, like government, health, like education. No offense to anybody in those fields. What I would say is once health ramps up, once you see the healthcare industry using VR and AR and this type of tech, then you'll see the cross bridge between that. Because as a techie myself, I don't know the types of needs that somebody in healthcare would need. So there's a little bit of a gap merging those two. They do have biotech and with all of the different bioengineering that's happening to where they can embed chips already in bodies. So that tech exists. Crossbreeding it with this, I think, is going to be where the folks who take this technology move on into the healthcare space and really try to develop for that ecosystem. And then make it mainstream. Yeah, but it might be something really simple, like take heart rate or something like that, and just, you know, like be able to showcase heart, like signal to you that your heart rate is up. And you're seeing that with wearables a little bit, so it might be an extension of wearable technology. So, but great question. Unfortunately, I'm not in healthcare, but I definitely challenge those that are in healthcare to try to fight that challenge and make it a reality. All right, well, it looks like that's my time. Hopefully you walked away with something. By all means, you have my Twitter handle, and don't be a stranger to ping me on Twitter. Thanks.